In the following presentation, entitled True Patriot Love, an inquiry into the sources of Canadian patriotism, we will discuss some of the possible explanations of Canadian patriotism. Our research is based upon the 2009 Canada Survey, which was conducted for the Globe and Mail by a research firm called the Strategic Council. The survey employed advanced probability techniques consisting of random digit dialing, stratification of the population by 10 regions, and was weighted in tabulation according to the 2006 census data. In order to investigate patriotism, we formulated a dependent variable out of 5 different survey questions. We believe they all measure different components of Canadian identity. As an index, they constitute a more nuanced measure of patriotism. The alpha score of 0.677 indicates that they all measure the same concept. To test our dependent variable, we selected 3 independent variables: anti-Americanism, multiculturalism, and Quebec. All 3 independent variables are long-standing but debated arguments for the source of Canadian identity. Canadians who think they are different from Americans are asserting their cultural distinctiveness and therefore anti-Americanism. Anti-Americanism is one of the oldest and most enduring explanations of Canadian identity. In 1907, Henri Bourassa asserted that Francophone culture could help to prevent the spread of American culture in Canada. As such, anti-Americanism represents a source of unity for Canadians, in which Canadians define themselves in terms of what they are not. However, it lacks the appeal of a more positive source of Canadian identity, like multiculturalism. People who believe in assimilation policy are obviously not supportive of multiculturalism. Therefore, we recoded the question to reflect multiculturalism. According to Clifford Orwin, Canadian students, if asked what Canada's or Canadians' primary value is, will respond, "It's multiculturalism, stupid." Nevertheless, multiculturalism remains highly debated in academia, even to the point where some scholars make apparently contradictory assertions. Stephen Brooks notes that region is a fault line in Canadian politics. As a source of division, region is often seen along bicultural lines, as is suggested by the expression two solitudes. The rift between Anglophone and Francophone culture often makes Quebec seem like the outlier in discussions about Canadian values. In particular, Quebec has come to the forefront in contemporary debates over multiculturalism. Our examination of the literature has led us to make the following hypotheses. We hypothesize that because it has deeper roots in Canadian politics and is broadly conceded in the academic literature, that anti-Americanism will be the strongest determinant of Canadian patriotism. Further, if anti-Americanism is a Canadian value, levels of Canadian patriotism should increase with levels of anti-Americanism. Also, if multiculturalism is a Canadian value, levels of patriotism should rise with support for multiculturalism. In order to determine whether our initial hypothesis is correct, that anti-Americanism is the best explanation of Canadian patriotism, we have to explore the effects of region. Therefore, we hypothesize that multiculturalism as a Canadian value is negatively influenced by Quebec as an outlier. To test our hypothesis, we will analyze the results of a bivariate regression using the independent variables anti-Americanism and multiculturalism and the dependent variable patriotism. Further, we will employ hierarchical regression to control for and analyze the effects of a third independent variable, Quebec, on the original regression equation. Finally, a path analysis model will demonstrate whether Quebec clarifies the variable multiculturalism or not. Our bivariate regression allows us to see how much effect anti-Americanism and multiculturalism have on patriotism while controlling for each other. This gives us a clearer picture of the influence of each variable on patriotism. First, our significance score indicates that the relationship is not by chance. Second, the adjusted R-squared score indicates that our variables account for 5.5% of the variation in patriotism. Finally, the B-values reveal the respective strengths of our independent variables. Anti-Americanism has a higher B-value than multiculturalism. While neither score is in itself a compelling explanation of Canadian identity, our initial hypothesis is confirmed in that anti-Americanism is a stronger indicator of patriotism. However, we still need to control for Quebec. By using hierarchical regression, we can introduce Quebec as an independent variable in order to attempt to get specification in our model. This means that controlling for Quebec would make multiculturalism a stronger explanation of Canadian patriotism. Since region neither specifies nor falsifies our independent variables, anti-Americanism and multiculturalism, we have a case of replication of our bivariate regression model. This confirms our hypothesis that anti-Americanism is a relatively stronger explanation of Canadian patriotism compared to multiculturalism. This also refutes the hypothesis that controlling for Quebec as an outlier improves multiculturalism as an explanation of Canadian identity. This can be more easily seen through path analysis. By introducing Quebec antecedent to our other independent variables, we allow for the possibility of region influencing respondent support of anti-Americanism and multiculturalism. Path analysis shows that controlling for Quebec causes no real change in the relationship between patriotism and anti-Americanism or between patriotism and multiculturalism. The B-value for anti-Americanism and patriotism decreases by only 0.03% between the two models. Similarly, there is very little change between our models regarding multiculturalism. Finally, the adjusted R-squared score increased by very little from 0.055 to 0.062. Clearly, controlling for Quebec has nominal influence on our model. As Barassa, Taylor, Wiseman, and others suggest, anti-Americanism remains an enduring source of Canadian identity. However, the idea that multiculturalism is what Canada is all about, as Charles Taylor suggests, cannot be confirmed by our research. Further, our research even challenges the notion of the two solitudes. Quebec does not appear to be a significant outlier, but it largely shares the values of the rest of Canada regarding both multiculturalism and anti-Americanism. Does this suggest a convergence of values between Francophone and Anglophone culture? Further, does it suggest a convergence between American and Canadian values? Clifford Orwin suggests that what is most distinctive about Canada is that it is a liberal democracy. How different can Canada be from the United States when what is most distinctive about both countries is their status as liberal democracies? For future research, it would be interesting to compare liberal democratic values to so-called Canadian values, like anti-Americanism and multiculturalism, as determinants of Canadian patriotism. Here is our essential syntax. And finally, here is our bibliography.